Hello everyone and welcome to Cheeky Let's Plays Ranks Every Pokemon Mainline series game. That's right, this is Alex aka Cheeky, and instead of playing the Pokemon games for this special episode, I'm going to give you a bit of a rundown of my opinions on the various main series Pokemon games, because I gotta be honest, I got some opinions about them. But mostly good opinions. I love Pokemon. It's one of my favorite video game series, even though I've had maybe a bit more of a love-hate relationship with it in recent years. I first started playing Pokemon when I was maybe, I want to say 8 years old or something like that, all the way back in the early 2000s, and I was obsessed with the trading cards, with the movies. You know, I had Pokemon fever just along with everyone else. I'm particularly excited now to sit down and kind of just chat about them all with you. So without wasting much more time, let's jump in with the very first Pokemon games. And I see that they've set it up a bit confusingly here because we've got green over here and blue and then red down here. But yeah, those are the first couple of games, green, blue, and red. Now, to begin with, I've never played green because of course blue and red were the ones that came out in the Western world. But I played both blue and red. I didn't actually play blue and red when I was a child. I didn't play them till much later. So maybe I don't have that quite the same level of nostalgia for them that I think other people do. But more or less, these are good games. These are perfectly good games. They capture the imagination of a whole generation, of multiple generations even, and they really set up the building blocks for the games to come. That being said, like, maybe it's unfair to base like past games on how they stack up to modern ones, but frankly, there's a lot of faults with these games. There's a lot of glitches. There's a lot of balancing that just does not work. And when you compare it to other RPGs of the time period, it's a bit almost embarrassing, the kind of mistakes that were made. I guess it just shows how good a concept that Pokemon is, that despite these mistakes, that it was still such a wildly successful game. And I think that all comes down to the creature design. Like, straight away, there is no series on Earth that has more interesting kind of design for the individual kind of monsters and stuff than Pokemon. But with all that being said, I think it is fair to put these games in the C category here. A bit of a rundown of how I kind of view these different categories. So, like, an S rank is what I consider to be not just the best video game in this particular series, but like a video game that can stack up against other video games. You know, you can compare the best Pokemon game with, like, you know, BioShock or Half-Life 2 or any of the other, like, you know, Red Dead Redemption 2 and Grand Theft Auto, all of like the top games of all time, and they still can hold up pretty well. You know, that's how I see an S rank. An A rank is, of course, like the best that the series can offer. This is when the series is shooting on all cylinders. A B is like better than average. Simple as that. Like, you know, this is a good version of the game. Couple flaws, but overall a good experience. I think C is where it's like, you know, either they tried something a bit different, didn't really work, or it's fine. You know, it's fine. And then a D rank is just like bad. Not a good game, but not like insultingly bad. And then F is insultingly bad. I don't think there's a Pokemon game that I'd put in an F rank. And maybe I'm being a bit too kind to the series, but, you know, the mainline series games are at least always competent games, you know? Moving on, we're going to go into Generation 2, Gold and Silver. Now, this is my first Pokemon game. Pokemon Gold was the first one I ever played, and I played the heck out of it. I played so many hours. I mean, I put at least 100 hours into most of these games, but Pokemon Gold just captured my imagination in ways that I guess Red and Blue never did, because I didn't even, like, I liked Gold so much, but I just never even bothered to go to Red and Blue, because I was just like, why would I need Red and Blue when I had Gold? The story, you know, early Pokemon game stories are nothing to talk about. Even the good Pokemon game stories are like not really comparable to some of the great video game narratives, but nonetheless, at least Gold and Silver was was somewhat interesting with what they were doing with Team Rocket, I guess. Negative elements of Gold and Silver, and I feel like this is talked about a little bit, and maybe not, but not nearly enough. The balance is still way off in these games, like much more so than in Red and Blue. Like the moves and the types are balanced a bit better. Like they introduced Dark and Steel type, which are two really cool types. But then, for example, with Dark type, they gave there might have been like a handful of new Dark type Pokemon, and most of them you couldn't really access until after the main game, until you got to like the post game, which just didn't make any sense. In fact, a lot of new Pokemon were locked behind completing the main game, which is just a strange gameplay design, is what I'll put it as. Strange, baffling gameplay design. But I guess it did encourage you to play the post game, and the post game in Gold and Silver is unbelievable. Being able to return to the Kanto region after you've beaten all the gym leaders in the Elite Four. I don't think there's a better post game than in Gold, Silver, and Heart Gold and Soul Silver. It's come close a few times, and I think often what will separate the really good Pokemon games with the not as good Pokemon games is that like longevity to the playability. Because as the series has gone on, the actual kind of 20 to 40 hours of main story gameplay has gotten quite repetitive. They haven't really played around with that much. So what I always care about is, what do they bring to the post game? What do they bring to that next 60 hours that I know I'm going to put into it? And will it be meaningful, or will it be just a lot of, pointless fetch quests and talking to people and battling 100 trainers at a battle tower, etc., etc. And I think Gold and Silver are the high watermark of that post-game content. With all that being said, there's one thing about Gold and Silver that I cannot abide, and that is the level incline, I guess, which is basically like all of the opponent's trainers Pokemon and the wild Pokemon all kind of cap out in the early to late 20s, which can make grinding really hard, especially when gym trainers Pokemon keep getting stronger, and then the Elite Four just suddenly takes a very quick jump up to the 50s while you're still dealing with a team that have only just reached level 40. So these games require a lot of grinding, and that just is not fun. Like, some grinding is fun. Like, there should be some level of grinding in these games. I think the opposite, where in the most recent games where you're constantly over-leveled, is too much in the wrong direction. But yeah, it's something that they should have fixed in Heart Gold, Soul Silver, and they didn't really. Anyway, with all that being said, maybe this is a bit controversial, but I think Gold and Silver fit around the high B rank. But that being said, I think Crystal is an A. As will often happen, you've got the two games that come out in a generation. You've got the third version that's usually a lot better. That will jump up a tier. So yeah, Crystal is just Gold and Silver, but better. Simple as that. Ruby and Sapphire. Now, these were my games. I think Gold and Silver were games where I was still kind of just picking my starter Pokemon Typhlosion and destroying everyone with that one Pokemon. Ruby and Sapphire, I started to kind of get more involved in the other elements of the game. Gold and Silver I would have played in that way where it's I took months to get through Ice Cave, I beat the 7th gym and I couldn't even get to the 8th gym for ages because I couldn't figure out the puzzles in Ice Cave because I was 6 years old or something. But Ruby and Sapphire were ones that I properly got involved in the story, because I think it would have been about 10 or so. So they have a real soft spot in my heart. I just think they're good as well. The Pokemon that introduced, the balance of the levels is finally there. The balance in the Pokemon typing and the amount of Pokemon per type is finally there. Double battles are so much fun. Berries, abilities, everyone talks about Gen 2 for bringing a lot of stuff like the night and day cycle and being able to hold items and stuff, but honestly, Gen 3 was the one that introduced so much of the stuff that is so integral to Pokemon games today. And Team Magma and Team Aqua, these are two games where actually it actually matters which one you get, because not only do you get a different legendary and different Pokemon, but you get a whole different evil team that you're up against, and the evil team from the other game is the good team. Like, that's great, and I don't think Pokemon has ever again made that much of a variance in the two versions. Like, Generation 3 is the only generation where it felt like it actually mattered which game that you were getting. Except for maybe Black and White, but we'll get to that. So for all of that, like, Ruby and Sapphire are an A for me. And then Emerald is our first S rank. Now, the Hoenn region already, as I said, beautiful, but the Battle Frontier, oh my god. The Battle Frontier is one of the greatest creations in all of video games. I'm going to say it. That might sound a bit over the top, but at least for me, for little 10-year-old me, it was amazing. Because it was so challenging. And I think even to this day, it would still be challenging for me. But it just feels so rewarding. And the different ways that they introduce new mechanics to battling in all the different kind of Battle Frontier facilities, it's just so much fun. Like the Battle Dome, I love the Battle Dome so much. This idea of bringing 3 Pokemon in and then having to look at your opponent's team and figure out which Pokemon that they were going to take in to battle you. It was just so much fun and cool, and the day that I finally beat the Frontier Brain at the Battle Dome, which is after like having to do 50 consecutive battles or something, I was ecstatic. I ran laps around my house. I was so happy. But yeah, Pokemon Emerald, great game. Unbelievably great game. Fire Red and Leaf Green. So these games were actually my first introduction to the Kanto region, which was originally seen in Red, Blue, and Green, because I didn't play Gen 1 until much later in my life. And I really liked Fire Red and Leaf Green. I would go so far as to say that these games are the most optimal way to play the Kanto region in Pokemon. Looking at you, let's go Eevee and Pikachu. Boo. I'll get to them. And the whole Sevii Island stuff is really fun. You know, really fun and creative way to bring in Pokemon from Gen 2 that you wouldn't otherwise be able to get. So, yeah, Fire Red and Leaf Green are good games. I'd say they're maybe just a little bit... I'd say they're about neck and neck with Gold and Silver. Diamond and Pearl is tricky for me. I don't know. Maybe I was starting to get a bit old for Pokemon. I do think that this is the beginning of the glory years of Pokemon. I think like Gen 4 and 5 and all the games that encompass that period are the best that the series has ever been. And I think that Diamond and Pearl are the low point of that. I think the Sinnoh region is really good and interesting. Really good layout to it. But I don't know, the game overall just feels like it's missing something. Maybe it's the reduced Pokedex, like little weird things, like the fact that you only have 3 different fire types out there. It's something that I can't quite put my finger on. And I know there's a lot of love out there for Team Galactic and Cyrus, but I couldn't help but feel that was a backstep from Gen 3, where it felt like we had a really interesting villain team with interesting motivations, and their motivations kind of tied in with the storyline and the kind of themes of the region of environmentalism. And Sinnoh and Gen 4 had this other theme about like gods and creationism and religion and stuff. But just having a guy that's whole plan was, I'm going to awaken the gods of time and space so I can just like destroy the world and create a new one. Like it didn't quite make sense to me. And it was the kind of plot that is then repeated in Gen 6, and everyone complains about how bad the plot is in Gen 6 with the main villain just wanting to destroy the world, while at the same time being like, Cyrus is so cool. And I'm like, but it's the same. Like almost A rank, but there are a few things that just like hold them back. But that being said, Platinum fixes all those things and is an S rank, straight up to an S rank. Like they bring back the Battle Frontier in Pokemon Platinum. They increase the Pokedex. They modify the story a little bit, I think that might do. Yeah, because then you've got Giratina. You've got I love the going into like the Nega Dimension or whatever it's called. Just so cool. Just artistically so cool. Like I said, I think that the design of the Pokemon games are at their best, where they're in this kind of like still pixel art DS period. And I don't care what you do with the remakes that are coming out for Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, they're still never going to look as good as it did just with the pixels. Like some art styles are just don't age badly, and this is the fact of that. It's like watching old Pixar films, and like, yes, new Pixar films have like a bit more smoothness to it, but some good animation is just eternally good. You know, it's just immortal, and that's the case with the art style of these games. And Platinum is able to have that art style while also fixing all of the flaws in Pearl and Diamond, so that's an S-rank Pokemon game. And talking about S-rank Pokemon games, we've got Heart Gold and Soul Silver next. You see what I mean by this being like the glory years of Pokemon? Like, Heart Gold and Soul Silver are all of the things that were good about Gold and Silver, but better. One of the best regions, Johto, great selection of Pokemon, and the best post-game ever. Because Heart Gold and Soul Silver have all the things that Gold and Silver had for the post-game. I don't think I need to talk too much more about why Heart Gold and Soul Silver are so good, but they are. They just are. And I remember I was embarrassed when I bought Heart Gold when I was 16 years old, because I thought, oh, I'm getting too old for Pokemon, but I shouldn't have been embarrassed because these are amazing games. Okay, next up, we are getting to I just realized that I've missed Pokemon Yellow. Oh, well, I mean, Pokemon Yellow is similar to Crystal to Gold and Silver in that it's just like, it's red and blue but better. And I did actually play Pokemon Yellow quite a bit. So I think I really like Pokemon Yellow. The fact that it has a bit more color to it, a bit more life. You've got like Pikachu walking around behind you, which has a lot of character to it. And you can get all three starters was ace. We love Pokemon Yellow. I think it's a good B grade Pokemon game. And that just made me remember the fact that Heart Gold and Soul Silver had Pokemon walking around behind you, which is the best thing that you can ever have in any Pokemon game. I'm so glad they brought it back in the Isle of Armor and Crown Tundra. And I think that they are bringing it back in Shining Diamond and Brilliant Pearl. Or Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, whatever it is. So I hate when Game Freak just removes good mechanics. And I think they did that more and more in Gen 6 onwards. But yeah, Pokemon walking around behind you should have stayed for good. Which just demonstrates how good Generation 5 is when they remove the Pokemon walking behind you, and yet they are still some of the best Pokemon games ever. I think it mainly comes down to the fact that it has one of the best stories, one of the best narratives in Pokemon of all time. And it's really hard for me to pick which is better, but I think that similarly, we're seeing this trend pretty often, but Black and White are right up the top on the A range, and Black 2 and White 2 I think are up there in the S. I think it goes, for me, it's like Emerald, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, Black 2, White 2, Platinum. Yeah, like that. Let me explain why these are so good. So I think this was Game Freak's first attempt to do a more mature mainline Pokemon game. And it all started with the fact that your trainer, as opposed to being like 10 or 12, I think they aged them up to like 14, 15 years old. And it feels like there's a more mature narrative to it as well. You know, this whole concept of a villainous team existing who don't necessarily believe that Pokemon should be used for battling. And it actually has an interesting thing to say about how different ideologies are important to create a better world, you know? And look, that can potentially be read as like quite a centrist case of being like, oh, both sides are just as bad and as good as each other, and if they just sat down and talked, like everything would be sorted out. And the mere fact of the matter is, most of the time, one side of ideology is arguing in bad faith. I think that Black and White didn't intend to have that kind of meta commentary on things, but they inadvertently did, because in the end it's revealed that yes, the other side, who are claiming that Pokemon should not be used for battling, are arguing in bad faith. So I think there's a lot you can do to read into how Black and White can kind of speak to the political circumstances that we're in today. I don't think Game Freak intended that, but I think that's what always demonstrates something is a good story, when it has resonances beyond what was originally intended. And the fact that the region is based off America, I think is a bit wink wink and nudge nudge, you know what I'm saying? Now, the other incredible thing about Black and White is they kind of worked as a reboot to Pokemon because there were no old Pokemon in Black and White. It was 151 brand new Pokemon, which was, I think, probably initially challenging for a lot of people when they first picked up the game, because Pokemon is a brand that almost entirely sells itself on recognition of its like Pokemon and its creature designs. But it was a bold strategy, and I feel like it paid off, because you felt for the first time again as if you were playing Pokemon Gold or Pokemon Red and Blue, and you didn't know about these creatures that you were encountering. Like, it brought back that sense of exploration, a sense of exploration that I think is very much missing in a lot of more recent Pokemon games. Sincerely, like, I think Black and White were the last games that made you feel as if you were entering into these unique biodomes with new creatures that you had to go out and discover. And I really loved them for that. So great narrative, once again, great art style, beautiful music. The first time I ever saw Castelia City, which is that huge metropolis, I was blown away that such a thing could be done in a Pokemon game. And yeah, overall, just love these games. And they're pretty good post-game. And the weather system was fun as well, the different seasons. I wish that they kept seasons and stuff. Anyway, Black and White are really good. Black 2, White 2, even better. Still got a great narrative. The first time I've ever had sequels. Technically, Gold and Silver are sequels to Red and Blue, but not really. But yeah, Black 2, White 2, actually sequels. We're in the same region, but new areas, new characters, old characters as well. Just dealing with the aftermath of what occurred in Black and White. Really cool. Loved that. But I'm once again going to talk about the post-game. So Black 2, White 2 introduced I think twice as many Pokemon to the Pokedex that Black and White had. So you had old Pokemon with new Pokemon again. But you had the habitat mode in the Pokedex, which is really cool, like a new dimension to discovering and catching Pokemon. You now had to like fill out all of the Pokemon that were found in each individual habitat. For the first time, it felt like you were a Pokemon researcher, you know, in a way that I think Pokemon Snap can make you feel like, but these games have never really made you feel like. So that was really cool. The habitat mode, the Pokemon World Tournament, the fact that you could battle every single other gym leader and Elite Four member and champion that ever came before. So cool. So much fun. Hours of endless entertainment. You had the Battle Tree and the Battle Tower, I think it's called, something like that, in Black City and White Forest or whatever it is. That was like, I spent so long working through that. It was like a dungeon. But yeah, they remain two of my favorite games. I hope I'm not rambling too much in this. I hope I'm like making sense as to why I feel this way about certain games. Anyway, on to X and Y. I want to put these in D, but I feel like it's not fair to put them in D. Because although I do think that these are some of the worst mainline Pokemon games, there's still a lot of stuff that they do good. But this was definitely the beginning of the bad period of Pokemon games that I think has still continued. Yeah, X and Y, the move to 3D just hurt Game Freak a lot, which it shouldn't. They're a multi-billion-dollar company, but it did. And it felt like the narrative took a dive for this game after we had such a strong one in Gen 5. They only introduced like 80 new Pokemon when last game they introduced like 150. The region didn't feel cohesive. The difficulty suddenly disappeared. The few good things about the game. I really liked Mega Evolutions, that was really fun. Really liked Fairy types, that was good as well. And the diversity of Pokemon was really good. Like, I think X and Y has one of the best and most diverse Pokedexes. I think like there's like 600 Pokemon in just their just the Kalos Pokedex, which makes for a really fun game because you can always have a very different, unique team every time you play. And some of the Pokemon introduced in X and Y are some of my favorites, like Aegislash and Greninja. Absolute A+ Pokemon designs. But other than that, it's just forgettable. And if I ever go back and play X and Y, they feel like a chore. And although this was a game that finally made certain elements of Pokemon a bit more accessible, like EV and IV training and natures and breeding and stuff, and I appreciated that. This was the first time I ever tried to make a competitive team. Making Pokemon more accessible shouldn't also make the main story feel so superfluous. I think that's what it is. The main story of the game feels superfluous. But I don't think it's fair to put them in D, so I'm just going to put them in C because there is still a lot of good stuff that they do. Now, Alpha, Sapphire, and Omega Ruby. I feel mixed about these games because they suffer from a lot of the same problems that X and Y have in terms of being quite... Actually, you know what? No, these are still pretty good games. Although they're easier, and I think although their post-game has a lot to be desired, the fact that they did not put in the Battle Frontier is such a bizarre creative choice. And if these games had the Battle Frontier, they could easily be up in like the A rank or something. I think they're still going to manage to be in the B rank despite all that, and that's merely because it's Hoenn, which is such a beautiful region. First of all, in addition, you had Soaring and all the Miracle Islands, and then the hoops where you could find all the legendaries. I think Alpha, Sapphire, and Omega Ruby felt like they worked as both games in their own right, and also DLC to X and Y, which makes them feel like much meatier games than they probably are. I actually really enjoy revisiting these games, and the Dex Nav was one of the best things to introduce. I'd love to revisit these games sometimes. Maybe I will do a Nuzlocke for Alpha Sapphire and Omega Ruby at some point. But these are B games, and I think, you know, they're a little bit better than Fire Red Leaf Green overall, I think. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to talk about Pokemon Sun, Moon, Ultra Sun, and Ultra Moon all in one, because it's an interesting situation where it felt like they kind of tried to do what they did with Black and White, and Black and White 2, and maybe if Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon were actually sequels to Sun and Moon, it would have worked a lot better. But the fact is that they are Sun and Moon with some baffling changes to the narrative, but overall, like, good new additions to Sun and Moon. Now, I think that Sun and Moon, that Gen 7, are the best 3D Pokemon games we've had. I genuinely thought that the Alola region was a real return to form after the general disappointment that came from X and Y and Alpha Sapphire and Omega Ruby. They still lack a lot in post-game. I think Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon improved that a little bit with the, like, going through the portals and stuff, and some of the UB kind of like episodes, but overall these games still suck for post-game. Like, they act as if they have a whole island that you can discover and explore in the post-game, but it ends up being the smallest island in the game, and you've already explored half of it already in the main story mode, and the battle tree is just the Battle Maison, but with some trainers that you fought before. Overall, a bit disappointing in terms of the post-game, but the game itself, some of the best music in any of the Pokemon games, the best evil team in any of the Pokemon games, Team Skull. Po-Town is so cool. Po-Town is so cool. This rainy, graffiti-covered town which has been overrun by these teenagers that didn't pass the island trials, and so they feel disenfranchised, and so they've fallen into Guzma's influence. Oh, what great environmental storytelling, you know? Really good. The narrative of Pokemon Sun and Moon is actually great. Like, all the stuff with Lily and her mother and Nebby, it's genuinely fun. And I get the criticisms that are thrown at the game for kind of hand-holding a bit. Yes, that does exist. That existed in X and Y as well. And I think it exists worse in Sword and Shield. So I would say that of the kind of 3D games, these are actually the least bad offenders of that.
And that's because the story is still so charming, despite the handholding. And the world of Alola is incredibly charming, despite the fact that the routes are starting to become a bit hallway-like, which we again saw in X and Y and see completely in Sword and Shield, just boring hallways with only a handful of trainers. But Sun and Moon manages to distract from those kind of mechanical elements by having a very unique play on the gym challenge, because the trials are not only fun and interesting and new, but they are a genuine challenge in a way that, despite the fact that Sun and Moon have the experience share and it's very easy to get over leveled, despite that, the trials are still really hard. And Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon one up that by having the battle against Ultra Necrozma be one of the hardest battles in any Pokemon game ever. It is terrifying to play a Nuzlocke in Ultra Sun and Moon, knowing that at some point you're going to have to fight that absolute beast of a boss. And that's where I reveal to you now the very exciting news, which is that I am going to be doing an Ultra Sun Nuzlocke. That's right. So on Thursday, I'm going to be releasing the first episode of my Ultra Sun Nuzlocke. And I will, at the end of this video, I'll go into detail on what the rules are for that Nuzlocke. But yeah, as I said, I really love these games. The diversity of Pokemon is really fun. The challenge is really fun. Now, with all of that, where do these games actually rank? I think that Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon are a very low A rank, and Sun and Moon are a B rank. Okay, here we go. Pikachu, Eevee, D rank. D. Fucking D's. Yeah. I mean, I played these games once. I think these games have the least amount of hours of any Pokemon game I've ever played, and it is because they are baby games for babies. No, maybe I'm being a bit harsh here. I liked Pokemon Go for about a month, and these games were an attempt to appeal, I think, to the audience that were playing Pokemon Go, because they introduced the Go catching mechanics, which were fine for a bit, but I got bored of them very quickly in a Pokemon game, and I just wanted to fight wild Pokemon again. And the fact that you can play it 2-player, you can do every single battle in the game 2v1, which I guess is kind of cool for, little kids that want to play with their parents or older sibling or stuff, but, I didn't need that when I was playing Pokemon Red and Pokemon Gold and Silver when I was a kid, I was still able to enjoy them. I'm just not a fan of these games. And it's Kanto again. We've seen Kanto so good in Fire Red and Leaf Green. We didn't need to see it again here so soon. Let's move on. Okay. Sword and Shield. We finally got in here. I mean, I think you all know my opinions on Sword and Shield because of the stuff that I've been saying in my Nuzlocke run, and you can tell that there are a lot of elements that I don't love about the game. I think it's very easy, it's very streamlined, there's not much of a narrative, very handholdy, etc., etc. The one thing that saves these games from being a D rank is the Crown Tundra. Because the wild area in baseline Sword and Shield is the best thing about the game. And then the Isle of Armor introduced another new wild area, which was quite good, but the narrative, the kind of story of the Isle of Armor was very boring and stupid and childish again. The Crown Tundra, though, it brought me back to what I was saying before, that sense of exploration in a Pokemon game. I felt like I was discovering these new worlds and these ancient ruins and finding, never before seen Pokemon. I felt immersed in a way that I hadn't for a long time. So I think the way I'm going to rank this is Pokemon Sword and Shield, just by themselves, is a D rank. The Crown Tundra DLC is a B rank, which I think means that overall these games are going to be put in C rank, just under X and Y. And that is it. This is the complete tier list of where I put all of the different mainline Pokemon games. That is a cheeky Let's Play opinion. And that is all for today. Hopefully this was interesting and not too long. In terms of the schedule for the rest of this week, on Thursday, like I said, I'm going to have my very first episode of my new Ultra Moon Nuzlocke coming up. Then on Saturday, exclusive Saturday 6 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, I'm going to be streaming my attempt to beat Champion Leon in my Pokemon Sword and Shield Survivalist Nuzlocke on my Cheeky Let's Play Twitch channel. And I will put a link to that in the description. So make sure you show up for that and chat to me in the comments as I hopefully take the crown of the Galar region and not die and lose all of my friends at once. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.